Welcome to the basement of the Lee Kempner house in Galveston, Texas. We're going to go down into the darkest, dampest, grossest, dirtiest part of this house. Unfortunately, before so many people asked me to document what I'm doing for YouTube so they could follow along, I had already gone down and done a lot of demolition work in the basement. So I've cobbled together some pictures and a few video clips that I found to give you a sense of what's down there. Before we step down in the basement, let me give you a quick overview of what it looked like before we did so much demolition. Stairs, there are 3 little rooms at the back, an open area, and there was a walled-in room with a servant's bath that had a bathtub, a toilet, and room for a sink. It was right next to what I think is the laundry area, which is pretty evident because the 3 laundry sinks are still there. It also had partition walls in the front 2 corners of the house. And underneath the 1920s addition, that sunroom porch, is a room that had already been demolished, but there are remnants of plumbing that support a full bath and possibly a kitchen on this side. And I know from the little bit of research I've done on the Kempners that when they built that room, they did put an apartment down there. It looks to me that these rooms were for servants to stay in. And then last but not least, we have our mystery area that we will talk about at the very end. You can enter the basement from 4 outside doors, or you can go down the servants' staircase. I want to take you down those stairs so that you can see what the basement looked like before demolition. You can see the beadboard on these walls. It's stained a dark color. This beadboard covered almost every wall in the basement. A lot of these pictures are dark because we did not have electricity the first 5 or 6 weeks that we worked. And we used a lot of flashlights and phone lights and unboarded a couple of windows to work. So everything's a little dark and grainy, but that's what it looked like when we were down here. There are 22 windows in this basement. When they're unboarded, I think it's going to be a fabulous, bright space. But for now, we're leaving the boards on just because the windows are so damaged. They're covered with a really ornate burglar bar. They have the original hardware. It needs a lot of work, but the windows themselves are in decent condition. The frame that they're sitting in, less so. Everything will have to be come out, probably the stucco repaired and new frames built to rehang these windows. Each one will have to be fully restored before it goes back. Some of the ceiling had beadboard, but some had this other just plain flat tongue and groove pine. The house was propped up with some temporary beams. Here's another view of all those pipes and wires and things that are running everywhere. On the plans, we talked about the 3 little rooms across the back. The first of these rooms, you can see that original ceiling still there, and a sneak peek at some of the repair work we've done. The rooms are segregated by these wooden partitions. I don't know if they'll have to come down or not. It just depends on what we find. Right outside the wall of this first little room are 2 columns that support the chimney for the kitchen. The floor in this area was made with vaulted brick and extra reinforcement in anticipation of having a heavy cast iron stove sitting in that spot. I love that they took the time, even though this is a basement, to add this little curved detail on the columns supporting the chimney. The next little room is where the water comes into the house from the meter. Everything's been disconnected, but the meter's still leaking, obviously, so we have some drips. Right now, we're just using it for storage. Eventually, we'll get new plumbing in, and the water lines will come in this same space. We're in the last little room, which sits under the back porch. These arches are called jack arches, and the metal in between are actually railroad tracks. They were used because they were cheap and available. You can see they're very rusted, they're failing. This is a problem we have on the front porch too, and it is a huge issue that we're trying to address right now. Remember that when this house was built, there was only one bathroom for the whole family to use. The servant's bathroom was down here in the basement, and you can see the remnants of it. It had a wall around it, and it had a clawfoot tub, room for a sink, but the most fabulous feature is this Mott porcelain commode. It was from 1893, and it sells on eBay for more than the first car I ever owned. I don't know if that tells you more about what it's worth or how old I am, but it's really cool. It's cemented in. It's never going to move, so it may just be a museum piece. Right outside the bathroom was the laundry room, and I've got to come up with some more adjectives besides incredible and awesome, but I can't help it because these sinks are incredible and awesome. There are 3 of them. I can't quite read what's on the side. I might have to do a rubbing to look them up, but they're in great condition, just dirty, and I love the way these faucets were set on, probably in cypress, and you can see the copper supply lines coming in. We're in the front under the library, and this kind of crummy looking shelving unit was up against the wall. We pulled it out to send it off to the dumpster, but when we got it away from the wall, turns out it's actually a cool old bar. So we're going to save that and probably use it as a kitchen island when we put a little apartment down here. Right in the center front, we've got this tiny little hobbit door. Remember that Galveston Island was raised almost 17 feet after the great hurricane of 1900, and this house probably had 2 feet or more of sand filled in to the basement. So they just cut the door off by 2 feet and made a little tiny door. And right next to it was a little cubby full of flower pots. At the back of the house, we've got another tiny little door, and beside it is an hinged metal door that I think covered an old furnace, possibly a coal furnace. There's not much left inside to see, little asbestos wrapped pipes. Fortunately, somebody came before us and took most of the asbestos out of this house, so we don't have to mess with it. Here's some leftover piping and venting components from the coal furnace and a second generation radiator system that was put in by the Kempners. We've also got a nice rat's nest going. And here's an example of why you have to remove all the plumbing from a house. These are galvanized pipes that are so full of sludge that the opening for water is less than the size of a soda straw. Here's a little more asbestos on the side. We've got some ductwork for the original coal furnace, and this is the gas boiler that was used to heat the water to run the radiator system. These screens are real interesting. They're curved to mirror the curve of the windows in the round porch. You can also see one of these shutters was made curved also, just a testament to the quality of the workmanship in this house. We're now in the front west corner, which sits directly under the parlor. In these photos, all of the wood hasn't been taken off the walls yet, and you can see on top of the wood there's actually wallpaper. So this lets me know that this room was probably used as a bedroom for servants. Another clue is there's a servant's bell still on the wall. Here's a quick shot of that same room after we did the demo. You can see all of the lumber that was saved. It's filthy dirty now because we've been saw cutting concrete. But the wood's in great shape. We can use all that again. Here's another stack of little hobbit doors. One door has some pretty hardware. The other one has just some old steel hardware that's rusted out. We'll reuse all these. And this was a window off the back of the house. but it was covered up when the Kempeners added on the addition in 1920. We've gone ahead and cut through about 30 inches of brick and concrete and opened up the two spaces so that they can be put together. You can see the remains of a bathroom. There's plumbing for a commode, a sink, and a tub. We found the old tub drain. Not like the P-traps we have today, but I think it's really interesting to have this old version. We'll save that, clean it up, and display it somewhere. Right now we're just using this room for storage. The walls are made out of terracotta blocks and then plastered directly over, so it's solid and sound. Switching gears, let's take a look at some of the electrical stuff that was down here. The electrical in this house was absolutely terrifying. It had everything from the old knob and tube, 1950s cloth-covered wiring that had been chewed through and eaten by rats. It just had wires everywhere, obviously not done by an electrician. Junction boxes, breaker boxes, things run on the outside of the house, and cable extension cords going from window to window on the outside. It's just amazing that this house didn't burn down. And actually we found in 3 different places evidence of some potentially serious electrical fires that, fortunately, because the house was damaged and so waterlogged from not having a good roof, the wet wood put the fire out before it made it any further. This is one reason why the insurance companies are right. When you get a house like this, everything needs to go and you need to start from scratch. It's a serious, serious safety issue. Plumbing's another really serious issue in the house. In addition to that water line clog you saw earlier in the galvanized pipe, all of the old sewer lines are either cast iron or terracotta. The cast iron is deteriorated and brittle and collapsed, and the terracotta is broken, so everything will have to be replaced in the house. Under the stairwell is the one place that there's dirt instead of concrete. Unfortunately, there was a sewer line going through here that caused water to intrude, and that's what brought on the termites. You can see here how much damage they've done to this beam. And our last fun thing in the basement is this awesome Otis elevator, one of the first in a residence in Texas. It's really cute, but unfortunately I think it was left on the ground floor during Hurricane Ike. You can see it's in really bad shape. I haven't quite figured out how to get it disassembled yet, but we'll do that soon and get it to an auto body shop and get it stripped and repainted and stored so that we'll be ready to put it back when the time comes. And it's got this incredible little seat for the operator, even though the elevator's teeny, teeny, tiny. Our last basement feature is this mystery depression area. I've had people tell me it's for storing coal, for wood, all kinds of things. But I think I've solved the mystery, so we'll have another video going up where I go down and see if I'm correct. That's a clue. It's going to take a lot of work to restore this beautiful house, and it's all being documented here on YouTube. So if you love old houses and you want to see the enormous amount of work that goes into a project like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can take this journey with me. For more information, check out our website, the link's below, and I hope to see you again here at the Lee Kempner House in Galveston, Texas.